Welcome to the Digital Nomad Experts podcast by Commute. Today we've got Jeff and Marisa, and we are going to talk about the pros and cons of working remotely from each continent. Before we got on this podcast, we were looking at maps to figure out what a continent is. Marisa, what is a continent? And where are the continents?
You are making us sound unintelligent, Jeff. That's not true. We know our continents, but okay, so we're
not exactly.
You speak for yourself. I know my continents, but we are breaking down 7 continents today. We've got North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Oceania. To be fair, we weren't sure how to say that word. I never really talk about that continent. I've read it a million times, but I never say it out loud. Oceania, apparently, and Antarctica. Within North America, I think where a lot of people get confused is sometimes people think Central America is its own continent. You've also kind of got the Middle East going on, but we'll kind of break down even within continents some of the different. You got the Caribbean in North America, things feel different. So we're gonna break down maybe some different regions or parts within each continent, but as a whole, we want to talk about the different pros and cons of living in all different parts of the world as a digital nomad. And these are blanket statements. So of course, every country is going to have its own unique feel to it. We've talked a lot about different countries. Go check back in different parts of different episodes if you're curious to see some specific locations, great places to get started, random destinations we've lived. It's been, I think I've traveled to over 80 countries at this point, so we've got a lot of data points to talk about, but wanted to give some generalities today. If you are considering jumping into nomad life and thinking where to go first, what region, because you might want to hop to a couple different countries within specific continents as you get started. And so it's a lot to think about, what continent would you want to get started as a nomad, and what are the good, the bad, the ugly, the fun in each of these areas? Do we miss anything?
No. Let's jump into it.
All right, so I'm gonna let you. Let's start with North America, and we kind of wanted to break this into 3 groups. We think about it as kind of the U.S., Canada, Mexico. We've got Central America going on, and then I like to think of Caribbean as its own little bubble as well. So I'll let you start, Jeff. What are some of your thoughts wherever you want to take that within North America or either of those 3 kind of regions within?
Yeah, taking a step back even further from that, I'd say just in general, North America, one of the biggest pros is time zone. Most of our listeners, about 80%, are North American based, US, Canada. So it's just going to be easier to, especially for new digital nomads, to be working in a very similar time zone. You're going to be plus or minus North America, either side, 3 hours maximum, something like that. So, really, really easy to negotiate that. You don't have to change your sleep schedule a whole lot. Your work schedule is going to be pretty similar. So just as a general rule of thumb, if you're starting somewhere in North America, it's probably going to be easier from a work standpoint. And then I would also say another pro would be familiarity. Again, for new digital nomads. Culturally, you're not going to be overwhelmed by a ton. Mostly the only language you're going to be experiencing other than English is probably Spanish, I would say. At least 95% Spanish.
Yeah, maybe a couple little Caribbean islands might throw something else at you, but mostly it's English or Spanish.
A few rarities in there.
French up in Canada in some parts, but yeah.
Sure, yeah. For a starter, I think it's probably one of the more soft landings. Probably why we see a lot of people start in Mexico. Yeah, I'd like to hear. I don't think I've done the Caribbean much, so I'd like to hear a little bit of your insights.
Yeah, so the Caribbean, you will not hear many digital nomads living in the Caribbean talking about the Caribbean.
Right.
Why is that, you may wonder? Mostly it is cost. A lot of those islands are very,
really?
they're actually super expensive. I love the Caribbean. I've done it more vacation-wise over the years, kind of popping in for a week here and there. I don't think I've ever spent extended time as a digital nomad in any, I'm trying to think, I'm racking my brain now. I've been to a lot of those islands, but haven't lived as a digital nomad. And if you think about our friends for a second, Jeff, think about, I can think of one friend who went there for a month for some tax break reasons, or maybe he was there for 6 months now that I think about it. But you'll almost never hear digital nomads going there unless you've got some people living on a sailboat where they're sailing the Caribbean islands. So if you are listening to this and you are the niche of the niche, thinking about living as a digital nomad on a sailboat.
Do you know anybody that's
I follow people on Instagram. I just am obsessed with like ocean. Really? But boat life is hard. I met
boat life. I've never even heard of this. This is all new to me. They're working on the boat?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So when I was living in Panama, I was in Bocas del Toro, living on this tiny little island called Bastimentos, and within that, like a smaller part called Red Frog Island. I was like,
oh yeah, there was a Selena.
There's this,
there.
yeah.
It's like you have to take a boat to get it. There's like a ferry.
Yes, so
right,
I was staying there. So yeah, there's like almost no cars. You can't get to it by just like the road. I had to take a boat to and from the mainland. I lived here for a whole month with our Nomad friend Murray, who I think was episode number 7 or something like that.
He's an original.
Yeah.
I finally met Murray.
You did? Oh, right. I forgot you were Cape Town.
Yeah, super nice guy.
Shout out to Murray.
Yeah,
yes.
Hey, Murray.
Love you so much.
Hope he's listening.
He's our South African digital nomad friend who I met in Thailand. Oh my gosh, back in 2018. So yeah, small world. But he and I decided it'd be fun to live on this tiny island for a whole entire month. And anyway, pretty much the only other people we met this whole time were, there was 2 places. There was like this little hippie, like kind of yoga people who had like quit their jobs and were making no money and sort of like volunteering in this like yoga beach. I don't know, one of those. Or the other half of the people there's this whole sailing community. I don't know this is where this is going today, but there's this whole sailing community. And a lot of people who, I think I was there in April. It was literally right before I met you in Bolivia. A lot of people, or I don't know what month it was, April, May, something like that. If you're a sailor, you're going to be like, this is not right. But whatever month it was, a lot of sailors leave the Caribbean because hurricane season comes. So the boats are in danger. Like, you don't want it to get swept away by the wind because it's everything you own in your home. But a lot of people went to this little island in Panama to get shelter from hurricane season. And so people would like either work from their sailboats, or we had a couple people who would come. It was like a 5-minute walk from the marina up to the Selena where I was staying. And so they would come work in the co-working space and then go back to their boats, like, for dinner and to be, whatever. So it was pretty fascinating. But yeah, I made friends with some of the boat life people. Some of them have been living in this marina for like 2+ years. They came here and they were like, I don't really want to leave. Like, it was baffling to me. So I have so much to say about sailboat life. There's another family I follow. It's a family of 6. They have 4 kids and they all live on a sailboat and they bop around to different parts of the Caribbean. I love it. So I get really seasick on boats, but I grew up, I love sailing. I love to be on boats, but I can't sleep underneath them because I get really seasick. Anyway, I don't know why we got down this tangent. So basically, if you're going to be living in the Caribbean, you're probably going to be living on a sailboat, or the cost of living is just high. Like most people we've talked about this a lot, but most people choose a digital nomad life because you can get more bang for your buck in different countries when you go to Central America, South America, Asia, parts of Africa, some parts of Europe. So mostly people are seeking get more money or I guess more bang for your buck, more value. That's what I'm looking for your salary. But the Caribbean, if you're just living on land there, you're going to be paying way, way higher rents. It's almost kind of like expensive cities in Europe, honestly. Yeah.
Wow. That's shocking.
Yeah. So the infrastructure is good. Wi-Fi is good, but you won't really find... There's some expat communities, but almost no nomads really go. I can think of 2 friends off the top of my head. One stayed in one island for a month and the other was there for 6 months for tax purposes.
Dominican Republic, maybe a little bit?
Yeah, the DR people do go to. That's fair.
Yeah.
People do go to Punta Cana.
Not Cuba.
No, Cuba, I have been there,
Yeah.
but only for vacation because the Wi-Fi is still almost non-existent and a crazy situation. So anyway, I guess the con of the Caribbean part of North America would be expensive, not as many, no, you won't find a nomad community there because of it. And I think aside from Cuba, most of the islands probably have pretty good Wi-Fi now. I would say the infrastructure is good. And the time zone's convenient, and it's beautiful. I guess maybe a con is also hurricane season and stuff like that. But yeah, so Caribbean's its own strange little bubble of not really a nomad-friendly place, but beautiful place for vacations still, I would definitely say.
Yeah, see, that's a big con for the Caribbean. The cost is always going to be a huge limiting factor. Big pro, you've got year-round awesome weather.
Unless it's hurricane season.
Unless it's I guess it's not year-round, is it? Yeah. You won't have winter, but you will have hurricanes.
Yes.
Then if we go to North America, U.S., Canada, you've got cost again. And then you've also got winter. If you're not into winter, got to deal with that. And then you've got Central America, which kind of gives you best of both, lower cost and better weather, typically. But that doesn't include Mexico, though. Mexico is technically North America.
It's all North America. Right? Central America, too.
Well, I mean, if we're... Oh, God, I'm so confused by these maps. Like, I'm seeing all these maps in front of me right now, and it's like, yes, you can break it down by Central America, but what is Central America?
This is true. So yeah, it is confusing. But I do think of Central America. Sometimes I throw Mexico in there, but mostly I think of anything kind of like below Mexico and above South America. I think of as like Central America.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, so I guess rounding out the pros and cons here, really depends on which section of North America, because it varies so much. I guess the only, going back to U.S., Canada, I've done digital nomading twice. I did one in a trip to San Diego, probably one of the most expensive choices I could have done. Did that for a month. Exactly what you expect. The weather was good. It was way too expensive, unsustainable. Managed like 3 weeks before I had to heal my bank account. Did Canada. It was unexpectedly cheap, but also cold as fuck. Like another huge downside. It's kind of tricky. So I think best of both worlds really is just Central America, Mexico, Central America area. Yeah. Aside with one caveat, Costa Rica is pretty expensive, it is. But also it's worth it.
Yes, I am here right now.
Costa Rica.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so good. But yeah, in Central America, I would say, so we've got like Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama. So a lot of, I would say, like the pros to this, as Jeff said, it's like, great weather. You'll find a decent amount of digital nomads. I feel like it's not as much as like specific hubs as some other places, but like you'll get a lot of travelers and kind of digital nomad-y people. I would say the cons are some of the infrastructure is like, sometimes it's questionable Wi-Fi. Nicaragua, you've got some like political stuff going, it's not always like the best. Honduras, people will feel is not safe. I have my best friend from college is from Honduras, but some people do go live, like there's an island there that people will live on. Belize, people definitely go, like it's not as popular, but some people will, like I know a couple people have stayed a month in Belize for digital nomad life. But yeah, so you've got, I don't know, I would say kind of infrastructure is probably the con. But you get like a little more culture, different than North America. But yeah, I think that does that pretty much sum up our North America bubble.
That's pretty good. It's varied. It's very varied.
Yeah.
Very varied. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've never really actually digital nomaded in the U.S. Some people will. A lot of like I feel like our foreign friends, our foreign digital nomad friends who are not from the U.S., very few come to the U.S. for nomad life. One, often it's difficult for visas for a lot of our foreign friends, and two, as Jeff said, just kind of like expensive. So some people do kind of start nomading around the US to start if you're from there, and it's like, let me just try this out, like bop around, but it's
doesn't last too long.
Yeah, and again, the culture is the same. It's a step to just kind of try something, but you're not gonna like really get that travel experience.
Also, getting around is a challenge too. Just getting around the United States, you need a car, not like a lot of these countries we're going to, it's like, most of the places we're going are fairly walkable or get Uber. Like, you want to go visit Texas? Okay, you've got Austin. That's it. Good luck.
A lot of ads when they come home do end up in Austin because I feel like it's a walkable kind of pop-in like city. But yeah, all right. So yeah, let us know if you have any questions about our North America thoughts here. So next, Jeff, let's move to South America. What do you feel like are some pros and cons of South America?
I think there's a lot of pros to South America. It's probably why it's one of the first stopping points for most new digital nomads. Number one thing has to be cost arbitrage, right? It has to be
and time
lower
zone.
Cost of living. I mean, you get kind of like the big three things you're looking for: the time zone, ease. You've got decent cost of living and like mostly good weather. Pretty much wherever you go, depending on what you're looking for, but not any extreme cold winter or anything. Yeah, it's really comfortable and it's easy. Very easy to go down there and slow mad. Just thinking of I've spent a lot of time in Colombia. Weather never changes there. Like you can always bank on it. It's like, okay, I need some warm weather for 2 months. Just go to Colombia and you're all set.
It's like
know,
the year-round.
easy
Everyone goes to
weather.
Medellin for like year-round perfect. I think, doesn't it only change like 1 degree throughout the whole year?
It's like 1 degree.
It's just
Yeah.
what do they call eternal spring or something like that? I don't know.
Eternal spring. I thought you said turtle spring. Just
You know, the turtle springs.
From now on, it's going to be the turtle spring.
Eternal spring.
Oh, poor Manny, my girlfriend. She's so soft. They're so sensitive to. They've got it so good with weather that any variation, she's like, "Oh, Jeff, it's been freezing here." I'm
It's like 3 degrees different.
Has it been freezing? Yeah, I look at it. It's like 59. I'm like, all right, look.
That is cold.
Let's take it easy. Well, the freezingest of 2 in the morning, and it goes right back up to 65 in 2 hours. Yeah. So yeah, it's got, again, you've got mostly just Spanish, unless you go to Brazil, that you're dealing with, and then you're just battling different accents for the most part. But yeah, at a cheap cost of living, good weather, mostly Spanish. Yeah, there's a reason why most people opt to go to South America as beginning digital nomads, and still I go to South America quite a bit. Went to Buenos Aires this year, had a blast. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
a lot of mosquitoes.
Really? In Argentina?
Oh boy, there was a weird.
I don't recall that.
We didn't understand what was happening. I went on a run in the morning early, and there's mosquitoes chasing me while I was running. I never had that before.
What?
I'm like, I was being stalked. I was like, this is wild. And I got back in, and we got some of the people in our group sent out this report that they had this like once in a generation hatching of just billions of mosquitoes. They're swarming. They had pictures of walls completely covered in mosquitoes. And we didn't go outside for like a week. It was just atrocious.
That sounds
so
like a bizarre thing. To be fair, if you're listening, don't let this throw you off from Buenos Aires, Argentina.
No, it's
I
very
went there for a
bizarre.
month and I remember 0 mosquitoes. So, but you never know. There was I was in Costa Rica like 3 years ago, and it was maybe a year after COVID first started, and because there were fewer tourists in the country, because people weren't traveling from COVID still, they had excess of sugar cane, and they had to burn all of this excess sugar cane. So there's all the sugar in the air and the flies because of it. Kind of like you're saying with the mosquitoes. So it's like these weird, sometimes like fluke experiences you'll have where I almost couldn't go outside because there's so many flies all the time. So anyway, weird things happen from time to time in nature, but...
Do you remember when we were in Paraguay and there's just like burning fields?
Oh yeah, the burning season. They have that in
it's just the burning.
A lot of places in Asia. They have like what's called burning season. They burn their trash like once or twice a year or something like that as their infrastructure. I forgot about that. So yeah, Paraguay is definitely went to Paraguay after Bolivia. We say skip. I went to Uruguay from Argentina. Didn't love it, but I will say we have a lot of nomad friends. So Diego, our co-founder Diego, is half Bolivian, so a lot of our Wi-Fi tribe community will spend a month or 2 in Bolivia often. So I feel like that's a country that's pretty under the radar normally, but within our Wi-Fi tribe community, it's a very popular one, and it's a really awesome country. But like Chile, Argentina, where else? Kind of Ecuador. There's some places, nomad friends, Colombia, but yeah, definitely Peru is a popular one.
Did we have any more cons for South America? I think we went through a lot of pros. Con would be, I guess, safety concerns, but we kind of covered that.
Safety concerns. I say sometimes it can be, depending where you are. If you're like in a big city or kind of off the beaten path, it can be sort of like infrastructure, Wi-Fi, like figuring out that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think getting between locations in South America isn't as easy as like traveling between countries in Asia, for example. But I don't know. It's pretty like... It's definitely a backpacker route for a reason. It's pretty travel friendly. It's very adventurous. There's like lots to do and explore and different cultures. And again, I think it's a little less overwhelming for people, like you said, with the language barrier of it's like mostly you're going to get Spanish. And so you can kind of like start to figure, whereas if you're in Asia, it's like a different language, different letters, different, things you can't read, understand. It's different, every country you go to is different. So there's kind of an ease in that way, but South America to me kind of still feels like the Wild West of like adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So that's South America. Anything else, pros and cons there?
I don't think so. It's pretty heavy on the pros.
Yeah, heavy on the pros. I would say cons. Most people come to mind is like, is it dangerous? Colombia.
Yeah.
People think of, I don't know. That's probably the biggest one to me. But yeah, easy time zone.
Yeah, less of a con, more of a concern that we just needed to address.
Yeah, be smart. Okay, so with that, I mean, it's not stopping us. I've traveled almost all the countries in South America, minus a couple. Okay, Europe. I'll let you start here.
Yeah, for me, biggest con has got to be cost. Because Europe I love Europe. You're going to have a different opinion on this because you think there's spirits in the wood and the houses
Stones.
and stuff. There might be. I mean, I'm kind of on board with that because I can't say I can't disprove it. But yeah, for me, I mean, it's cost. It's a few things actually. Some of the cons would be some of the costs are outrageous in Western Europe.
I was going to say, should we split
Spain,
like Western and Eastern Europe as we talk about Europe?
We're gonna have to.
Let's talk about Western, because I feel like cost-wise, you're mostly talking about Western Europe to start.
Yeah, almost exclusively talking about Western Europe. So, yeah, France, Italy for sure, super expensive. Germany, not quite so bad. Spain, not quite so bad.
But still up
I don't know
there
what Portugal
compared
looks like
to,
at this point. It's still up there.
Portugal's more affordable, but it's
Ireland
rising. Yeah.
UK, super expensive. Yeah. Ireland, Amsterdam, Netherlands. Oh my God! And it started getting up in the Finland, Sweden. Forget about it. Like that's vacation. That's not, no way. Give it a week, and yeah, you're good. So, yeah, really, really expensive. Whereas if you start going into Eastern Europe, Romania, Croatia, get into like the Balkans, Serbia, that kind of area, it just drops off significantly. It's getting up there though. Like the last time I was over there, even all the way east to Georgia, to Tbilisi, I was shocked. Like, oh man, I thought I was gonna have amazing exchange arbitrage, and just wasn't.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I mean there was some tourism, but nothing where I was struck and I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely tourist driven. It just might be inflation. Yeah. I'm not sure. Aside from Armenia, which has zero tourism, so that's just untouched gem. So don't ruin it for me.
But even Romania.
So that's the cost.
Cost-wise, even when we were in Romania, was it 3 years ago? I think 2021. I had some Nomad friends who had been there a year or two before that, and they said that, like, rent, as we were looking at renting, like an Airbnb for a month or so, they said it was almost like 1.5 to 2 times the price it had been a year or two before that, and that was 3 years ago. Oh, wow. So it's definitely still less expensive than Western Europe, but it's slowly rising.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at it now, I mean, I stayed in the UK last year in the outskirts, and I think the place that I rented was like around $200 a night for a tiny shoe, like a postage stamp. And then you go to, say, Romania, and it's going to be half that, or even less than that. So it's still significant. The difference is significant. Yeah. Okay. So that's cost. What else have we got? Weather. I think it's a pretty important one.
Yeah.
Super seasonal, right? So depending on where you are in Europe, it can really impact your experience. I remember going to Germany in March. I was like, oh my God, this is fucking depressing. It was so cold. Dark and barren and cold. And it was just, I was like, this would be miserable. I would not do well here full time. So yeah, as you start going north in Europe, it's like, you really got to pick your times. But then if you go in summer, the tourism is just outrageous. We were in Italy and like peak tourism. It's like, oh my God, you're just elbow to elbow with people. Even in Prague, and this was just past COVID, it's like during COVID, and they said it was maybe 10% of the normal tourism, and it was still that Charles Bridge that goes in between the weird little platypus island.
Yeah, you were there a week after I was. We just missed each other there.
Yeah, the swamp rat
those were so cute.
There's still a ton of tourism, and they said, oh yeah, it's like a 10% of what it was. So yeah, the summertime in Europe, it's just, you got a big trade-off there. The weather's beautiful, but I mean, you're elbow to elbow with people, and it's super expensive.
Digital nomad summer in Europe is a real vibe. I feel like all of our friends are like, Europe summer, like but as Jeff said, the costs go up, the tourists go up, and so if you can get, like those kind of, what do they call it, shoulder seasons. So it's kind of like right before it starts to hit that, and right after, so it's not too cold, but not. Maybe peak summer, you'll get a little bit better pricing, a little bit fewer tourists.
We haven't talked about tourist stamps much yet either. That's another thing to consider too. When you go to Europe now, Schengen zone is expanded so much that your time is so limited. So For those who don't know, Schengen zone is a group of European countries going further and further east, actually, into Eastern Europe, where they're all kind of grouped together on the same, I'd say, passport stamp, tourist stamp, where you're limited to, I think it's a 90-day period and a rolling 180 days. So your look-back window, if you look back 180 days, you can't exceed 90 days. And they don't fuck around with that. Like, when you go to Mexico, it's like, whatever. Yeah, it's fine. You can stay an extra 6 months. We don't care. Bolivia, I overstayed, and I think they charged me like 4 cents a day, something like that. It was nothing. There, they don't mess around in Schengen. Like, you will have to pay fines, like real fines. And I think they might
be able to go back, perhaps.
Yeah, there's something like that.
Like,
you can't go back
for a while.
Time. So that's another limitation.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people try to plan their summers there. And there's a few countries, like you said, it's expanding, but there's a few countries kind of Eastern Europe that are non-Schengen zone. And that's Schengen, if you're curious and you're like plotting your digital nomad life and summers for 6 months, like check that out to make sure you're only in the Schengen zone for 90 days at a time within that 180-day period. So you can kind of pop in and out of it or stay in it for 90 days and leave it for another, 90 days and then come back. But yeah, that's a tricky part of it as well. And it changes. I don't love Europe. This has never been an issue for me, but a lot of our nomad friends are finding ways to get different either residencies, passports, different citizenship from like long lost ancestors. A lot of our friends, I feel like, have getting Spanish residency, Italian residency, Lithuanian residency. So if you're diehard, like ready to live in Europe, like there are ways to do that. A lot of people will get residency in Portugal. And I will say Portugal is that one when you're looking weather-wise, it's still pretty affordable and it's pretty nice year-round compared to most of the rest of Europe. So I would say Lisbon and Porto, like within Portugal, are some of the hottest kind of nomad spots because of year-round weather. And a lot of our friends, some people will go for a month or two, but I feel like a lot of nomads who love Europe and who have traveled around and are looking for a home base end up in Portugal because you can get citizenship or at least residency there, and it's like good year-round weather, and it's still a good, I don't know, it's cool culture. You can pop around different places, so yeah.
They're big on the digital nomad visa over there too, Portugal and Spain.
Yeah, and more places are adding them too.
One of the first ones. Yeah, it was one of the first ones.
I think Estonia was like the very first one, and then they added some. Yeah. But yeah, I think weather's a big one. I was there. I was in Europe a couple of years ago doing a road trip through Eastern Europe, and so the prices were decent, but then it started inching toward October, and I was like in Latvia and Estonia, Lithuania, and it was cold and gray, and I was like, get me out. I'm done. Also don't want it. I'd say another con, the harder part. I don't think this is a con personally, but
there's a lot of cons. We gotta mix in some
Sure, we'll get some pros in a minute. I'm going for more cons in Europe. We'll get to pros in a second. I do want to say one more con that people have. This isn't even my personal opinion, but if you are concerned about language, I also just want to give a little 2 cents about language as a nomad. So many people have fears of like, I don't know the language, I can't go to this country. There's Google Translate. You can use your phone. There's so many ways to figure it out. Like, please don't ever, I know it's easier said than done, but don't ever let language stop you. But I will say there's like a different language in almost every country as you change borders in Europe. And that is overwhelming and sometimes a con for people where they can't communicate. It's like they want to learn one language and be able to get around. And that's not the case if you're bouncing around to different countries there. But to me, I think it's fun. That doesn't ever deter me, but yeah.
I was in some random village in Armenia trying to figure out whether to put diesel in my rental car or regular gasoline, and I had to use Google Translate. This guy had never spoken a word of English in his life. I'm like, yeah, Google Translate works, guys. Just pop it in there, hit the country you're in, and it'll spit it out for you, and you'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah, I did the same in Serbia. I was driving with a friend on a road trip, like middle of nowhere Serbia.
So you broke down
I got a flat tire in the middle of nowhere and had to like ask.
They're not speaking any English in the middle of Serbia.
Zero English, like not even a word. So yeah, Google Translate. I was like, please, could you help me like find a tire shop? And they took me and they thought, it all worked out. So yes, but language is one. I think Europe has a weird vibe personally. That's my con of Europe. It's a scary, dark place with weird spirits. That's a very personal Marisa opinion. And some other friends I have, but almost everyone else loves Europe. So if you like the old cobblestones and history and castles and town squares, Europe is for you. It is not for me. It is not tropical. It is not tropical beach land, and it's not my favorite, but to each their own. If you love like the Romance languages and the old timey things and old buildings, you go to Europe and you enjoy. Okay, what are some of the pros of Europe? We haven't talked much about that.
Yeah, a lot of people get romantic about the idea of going to Europe, especially if they've never been. They think of it in terms of vacation, like going to Paris, going to Italy, and they're cool. They're pretty cool. Paris is pretty cool. It's all the things that you'd expect, like the mopeds going down the street and people eating baguettes and really, really good food, obviously. Same with Italy. The food is as good as you dream it's going to be. If you're into architecture, that's what you do. You go and look at that stuff in Europe. Beautiful churches, all of the things that you would expect. I know, crazy, haunting looking
I hate
churches. If you're into that kind of stuff, the architecture, I mean, it's everything as built. Like you'll find all the things that you're looking for, and it's pretty cool. If you're a beer drinker, awesome. Yes, Germany. Go to Germany. Go to Belgium. That's a big draw for me. Huge pro. Go right to the source. It's great. Yeah. So if you're into the history, you're into the romantic aspects of stuff. Yeah, definitely do it. But just be aware of the costs in Western Europe. Be aware of, if you're not going in the shoulder season, you're just going to be inundated with tourists. It can be really overwhelming. So it's part of the reason why you don't see a whole lot of digital nomading in Western Europe. And if you do, it's almost just Spain and Portugal.
Yeah.
Right?
A little Italy every now and then.
A little bit a stopover.
But yeah, it is a good point. Most of our nomad friends, it's like the other places you'll kind of go on vacation. You might go to France, like stop through Paris. You might stop through Amsterdam. But mostly, I know some...
That's all I've done.
Yeah, people aren't like just for pure cost, right? Like nomads are mostly going because you can get so much of the same aspects of those countries in other places in Europe that are more affordable. So most people are going to some of those.
We did an episode on that. Do you remember?
Will you look it up? I'll give you a couple more pros while Jeff goes pull up Europe. Is that if you're someone who, especially if you're newer to nomad life or travel and you're wanting to move around quite a bit and explore a lot of different places, like nowhere beats Europe for ease of traveling between different countries. So you don't, like, once you're in Europe, because everything's like within the EU or Schengen zone for the most part, it's not as hard to cross borders. You don't always need like a visa for every single place once you're, have arrived in Europe. And just with the train system or super low cost like regional flights with, Ryanair or some other airlines, it's really, really so the cost of living might be high, your rent might be high in these places, but to get between all of these countries, that's why so many people study abroad in Europe, because you can go and like explore 10 different countries every weekend, So I would say that is a big pro of Europe if you are wanting to like you're chomping at the bit of travel and you want to get to a bunch of countries, like you can check some things off the list of popping around different places in Europe.
That's true. You can cover a lot of, I mean, if you drive 7 hours in California, you're still in California. You drive 7 hours in Europe, you go from the UK to Estonia or Poland. Like you could cover a lot of ground.
I did a road trip through 10 of those countries, like within, I don't know, maybe like 2 months or something. I saw a lot of Europe. So yeah, it is tiring, but you can move around. Did you find the episode?
Yes, it's episode 97. 5 most popular travel destinations and where to go instead. That's 97.
Yeah, it's a good one. So again, if you're like, I'd love Paris, but where should I go? I don't remember the exact locations we did, but you can find alternative locations that kind of give you a lot of the same vibes of those places, but might be half the price or half the number of tourists, or just kind of a better, easier place to more nomad community, stuff like that.
We should do that again. That was a fun one.
We should make a note of that to do some more destinations for that. Okay. Anything else with Europe? That I feel like covers most of it.
No, that's good. Let's jump.
Okay, so before we hop over to Africa real quick, we just want to say, if you're not already on our email list, check out beachcommute.com/email to join. We send tons of info to help you get a remote job. We send awesome remote job listings, different info about the podcast, and pictures of our personal travels, which is really fun too. So check out beachcommute.com/email so you make sure you don't miss out on that, and we'll help you get a remote job even faster. Go to Africa. You want to start us off?
Yeah, so my experience is going to be limited to just South Africa. So I'll just speak through that lens. So some of the pros, I would say, would be similar to what I saw in South America with cost of living, aside from cost of housing, which is disproportionately whole other story. Huge,
And that's
huge bubble that
specifically
we've
in Cape
caused.
Town.
Cape Town, yeah, yeah. You typically won't see that like Namibia
No.
or other places, right? That's just a
Yeah.
Cape Town thing. Yeah, we've done that. We caused that problem. Like that's an artificial crazy bubble. Yeah, so huge pro for that is that's an awesome place to go for winter. Like a North American winter, European winter, you want to get out of the cold weather. It's so beautiful there. Oh my
Yeah.
God, the weather is great. It's hot. You're right next to the ocean. It's got what you're looking for. Tons and tons. Oh, it's beautiful too. It's like I was kind of shocked because every night you'd see, like, I thought I saw beautiful sunsets in, yeah, you'd always see it Pacific side of the Caribbean, Central America kind of area. Costa Rica,
Amazing.
wow.
Mexico, Costa Rica. Yeah.
Doesn't get much better, right? But you get these crazy sunsets, like Disney sunsets in Africa that I didn't know existed. These colors are just
It's
wild
insane.
across the side of the
Yeah.
mountains. It's beautiful. It's like these pink and oranges that last. It's like I feel like the sunsets last 2 hours.
I
there.
agree.
It's otherworldly. I don't know. Is it like that? Is this like a Cape Town thing?
Well, Cape
Or
Town-
did you see that in other places?
Cape Town, you get that view
Africa
of
too.
the water in a different way. Like it's like the southernmost tip of Africa. So it feels like you were just looking out into like nothingness of water forever. And so you get that really, like you can see the whole sun and like every color for, I feel like, miles in every direction. So it's a little bit different. I think a lot of, like if you're on safari in other countries in Africa, the sunsets, like I've been in Kenya, I've been in Namibia, like the sunsets when you're out in like in the savannah, in the grass, like it's amazing. I remember through Namibia, the first night we were going on this road trip and the sun was setting and like the sky sort of turned like red, like the whole, I was like, what? In a way that I've seen some red sunsets in Costa Rica, but it was other, sometimes it's like purple, but there's these sunsets, I don't know what it is. And I know some people like when you say like the sunsets in Africa, they're like, you're like, say which country you mean, but I'm talking, I really mean like most of the whole continent. The sunsets are magical.
Yeah.
So they're different than Cape Town, but it's always something a little, there's just like a magic in that continent. And Mauritius, I guess it's like technically, I lived there for a month. It's technically part of Africa. The sunsets there were sometimes blocked by clouds, but pretty beautiful. Not quite as epic as South Africa, but yeah, all over. But Nigeria, I don't know, Nigeria, they still feel, I lived there for a month. It still feels magical, but it wasn't quite the same. There's something specifically special about like Cape Town, South African sunsets that are otherworldly.
Yeah, it's just I can't even explain it. It feels like you're in that Planet Earth show with David Attenborough. Like it's just it's jaw dropping. So yeah, really pretty. But yeah, great place for winter. Although again, if you're going down to Cape Town, you got a seasonality type of thing. From what I hear, the winter's not so great.
Yeah.
Very windy, very cold, very rainy. So there's that aspect. Housing can be a little bit more expensive in Cape Town, but the cost of living was, I'd say, it's pretty similar to a lot of places in South America I've been to. Just shopping for groceries is just very, very affordable. And I found the people to be really nice. People warned me that they thought the people weren't going to be very nice. That was not my experience at all. Everybody that I've spoke to was very, very welcoming and nice. Also, if you're into wine, it's actually the same latitude, but reverse as wine country in California. So that's why it's such a wine region. There's a ton of really, really good wine for those.
And that's in South
Somals
Africa,
out there.
like Cape Town area.
That's in South Africa. Yeah, I spent a lot of time talking about Cape Town, but you've got a lot more experience in the region, so maybe
Yeah,
give me
so
a little
I
bit
would
more
say some
variety.
general, I'm going to say some cons first, actually. I would say one of the biggest cons of living as a digital nomad in Africa, like in the continent, is it's actually really expensive to get around Africa. So if you think about Europe or Asia, there's some regional airlines that you can fly in between countries pretty inexpensively. Africa, like once you land in one country, it's almost like the same price as flying to a different continent to go to countries within Africa. It's a strange thing that like you wouldn't necessarily think about for people who are just flying like into one country and out of one country for a vacation. But as a nomad, if you're wanting to kind of go to a couple countries within Africa, driving is usually not I mean, it's possible, but often it's like really hard drives, or you're driving like through places you don't want to be driving or can't drive through certain areas. The roads like disappear. So
it's huge.
It's huge.
Too, right? I mean, people forget Africa is enormous.
So the infrastructure, like if you're going to one country, like that's great. But if you're wanting to kind of travel around, it's not as easy. There's a reason like backpacker routes are either Europe, Central or South America, or Asia, because it's easier to kind of like once you've landed in a country to travel to different countries. So getting around within Africa is actually pretty difficult or just expensive. If you fly, it's like $700 to fly to the country like right next door. Jesus. Yeah, it's tricky. And weirdly, a lot of the housing, it's like in my mind, I would think like, oh, it'd be really inexpensive to live in Africa. But to get the kind of accommodations that you are probably thinking of or used to if you wanted to live more, not like high end, but just like an apartment that you might be used to elsewhere is actually, I found to be it's not so expensive like Amsterdam or Paris or something like that, but it's not cheap per se. It's not like comparable prices to Central America or to Eastern Europe or to Southeast Asia. So it's not always super cheap. I guess it kind of like falls somewhere in the middle.
Just
yeah, it is surprising. It's not what you think it would be. I guess maybe because there's just not as many of those options available in lots of places. The infrastructure is like just not the same. And it's not really set up. You won't find many digital nomads. I feel like if you're an adventurous digital nomad, you might go live in a country here and there. Like I feel like my travel, I've gone to maybe 5 or 6 different countries within Africa, but I feel like my nomad friends who go are just kind of like people who are trying to get to every country in the world, or like just want to go have an epic adventure. It's not the nomads who are like, I'm just really focused on work and I just want to be in a different place, surrounded by an easy life with nomads. Like it's not always easy. So like living in Nigeria, for example, our place had a generator, but still like the power would go out like every couple of hours for like 2-3 hours. And that's
another thing.
Yeah, power outages, Wi-Fi. So you can tether to your phone, but it's just like the infrastructure is not yet set up in a lot of the countries in the same way as you'll get in Southeast Asia or Europe or some of those places. There's also, you've got, I don't know, there's a lot of depending on the time and the year, there's usually different, I don't know, there's always like a genocide going on somewhere, like different stuff going on that a lot of people, I just think it's more unknown. But I love Africa. So I would say that the cons are that it's kind of more expensive than you think, hard to get around, the Wi-Fi, it's an event. You got to be like set up and ready. Aside from Cape Town, which is like a little bubble that like tons of our nomad friends go to, mostly January, February, March, when it's like opposite, when it's winter in North America. It is beautiful summer in South America and the Southern Hemisphere. So we have a lot of, like, to me, Cape Town kind of feels like, I don't know, it's like the little bubble of within the continent of Africa that feels kind of like almost westernized US-ish, but it's epically beautiful. But the rest of Nigeria, again, still feels like very uncharted. But to me, if you're a traveler and you love adventure and going off the beaten path, like the animals, the safaris, like the cultures, the people are epically amazing. Like I love Africa, but it's, to me, you got to be an adventurous traveler. It's not always the easiest continent to just be like go find digital nomad, and community is harder. But we haven't talked much, if you think about maybe even like Northern Africa, I would say Egypt is maybe like a little bubble within that feels a little different. We do have a lot of people who go to Egypt to kind of like do some nomad life, but Dahab is Dahab is a little really good for scuba diving, weirdly, and it's a little digital nomad spot there. But yeah, I would say it's really epic. Like there's so much you can do. The animals are just like amazing that don't exist elsewhere, and it's a magical continent. But you got to be, maybe it's not your first stop if you're just starting with like a new company and and going remote.
No. That's not a warm up spot. That's more of a seasoned type of adventure. And we didn't even talk about the time zone there too. Okay, yeah,
I was
go
going to
ahead.
say, yeah, so, and we forgot to mention that with Europe as well. A lot of people, if this is coming from kind of like North American view, if you're in Europe, like you can travel all over Europe and Africa and kind of have pretty decently similar time zones. From North America, you might think it would be really hard to work from the time zone in Europe and in Africa, but it's actually kind of, it depends what you're going for. It can be easy for a little bit. So a lot of our Nomad friends will work from kind of like 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. in Europe. So I just want to say, like, that might seem weird and hard, but a lot of people really love Europe, having like your day and your summer and your mornings to like explore and be a tourist or work out or just have a slow morning and then work those kind of late afternoons, evenings. And then Africa, you get a little bit further, but it's doable. So I would say it's not so hard as Asia, which we'll talk about. You're going to be working some kind of like evening night. So it's not the most ideal if you have to stick to a time zone. You're kind of pushing it, but it's doable.
Yeah, I found it to be surprisingly doable. I thought it was going to be a huge problem for me because I just typically don't work well in the afternoons. But we've talked about this before. That time zone allows you to use all your good energy in the morning on the fun stuff. Like going on an event, you can have like a bunch of adventures before you even start your day. You know, you could, like we did that going on those hikes in Cape Town. You just take off, go on a hike, come back, and start working at 3 p.m. It's great. Yeah. It's a whole different way to frame. And it's part of the podcast we had last week, reframing your idea of productivity and what work hours mean and stuff. That helped kind of change my opinion on what that could possibly look like. I'm like, oh, it's just so baked into that 9 to 5 hours, 8 to 4, whatever normal, business hours you got. And then doing this, you're like, no, you don't have to do that. You can kind of structure your day however you want. And it's a good opportunity to look at things a little bit different as opposed to maybe a hindrance like some people might think.
I had a friend once who said, so if you think about the reason 9 to 5 kind of started was for farming, right? It was like during daylight hours, so you can like work in the fields and natural light. And we still use those hours, just no one really questioned it. But I remember living with a friend once and he was working in the evenings. He was like, why? I don't have to like till my digital fields in the daytime. Like I can do that at night now. So it's like, you can use the daytime and have the daylight to go on epic hikes or go scuba diving or go surfing or, do those daytime things that in a typical 9 to 5 workday, you can't really do in this, like you save that stuff for the weekends. But in Nomad life, when you shift your hours like that, you have all day to do whatever you want. And especially Cape Town is an epic place to have adventurous days.
Oh, we just got one left?
One more main one. We've got Oceania and Antarctica, which aren't as much. But let's pop to Asia real quick.
Okay.
So I have traveled a ton of Southeast Asia, a couple other places. And I guess Asia you could also split up. You've also got like the stands of like Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan. I haven't done much of that region. We have a lot of friends, a lot of digital nomad friends who, I don't know why that was like a trend this year. Everybody was like in Mongolia and like all these places, which was really cool. So Asia is also like, I don't know, there's so many different cultures and different places within it. But I kind of want to focus on Southeast Asia for the purposes of this, because that's where you're going to find, like, most of the digital nomads you're going to find are in Southeast Asia. And it's a big circuit for a reason. So like tons and tons of people in Indonesia specifically. I always think of Bali as like its own, it feels like its own country. It's very different than the rest of Indonesia, but Bali is always a huge hotspot. And then within that, there's also, I feel like the other countries are more, and Thailand. Thailand is another huge digital nomad hotspot. Other places I think will get bigger. The Philippines can be hard for Wi-Fi, but a lot of people I feel like kind of base themselves. Malaysia is a big one, Kuala Lumpur. I would say more like expats, like more people traveling with families. I don't know why I tend to go to Malaysia and live in some places there. But either way, Asia is the pros are very easy to travel to tons of different countries on like inexpensive flights. There's also kind of like regional flights you can fly between lots of different, and very affordable, lots of different countries, places, different cultures you can check out. So even within Thailand, within Indonesia, I feel like those are probably the two most popular digital nomad hotspots. But I also traveled to like Cambodia, to Laos, to Myanmar, to, I can't think off the top of my head. Japan is, I would say, one of the only kind of like more expensive cities. Japan is very expensive within Asia. But other than that, most are pretty affordable. You can get around. And the food is epic, 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 epic. Sri Lanka, it's another one I lived in this year. We have Nomad friends who go to India. So where did I go? Nepal, I lived in this year. So there's all sorts of places you can go. You're going to find lots of either travelers or digital nomads. It's very easy to meet people. It's easy to take buses and inexpensive flights between countries. And what else can I say? I feel like safety is a huge one. People love Southeast Asia because for the most part it feels pretty safe. If I think about Thailand, like I've lived a couple different places in Thailand, but Koh Phangan, for example, is an island where a lot of digital nomads live. And if I think about Cape Town compared to Koh Phangan, like in Cape Town, everyone's like, don't, have your phone out, don't walk around. I know you said you felt a little bit differently, but that's what most people are going to say. It's like, you will get mugged, your stuff will get taken. Whereas in Thailand, like people leave their phones and their keys and their scooter when they go into a coffee shop and leave their houses unlocked, and you don't think twice. Yeah, it feels very safe, as do a lot of places in Asia. So it's different. I would say the con is time zone is hard. The Wi-Fi is getting good, so that's not so difficult anymore. But I would say that, honestly, if Asia wasn't on complete opposite time zone, like when I look at Atlanta or New York, kind of Eastern time versus Bali, Thailand, it's almost 11 or 12 exacta. It's like complete flip-flop of a day. So it can be hard if you're someone who works for a company where you have to be on calls or talk to people in different time zones. Like that's the tricky part. I think if you like moved Asia and put it in the US time zone, I feel like every nomad would be...
That keeps it special.
Yeah, it keeps it special. But you'll find a lot of backpackers and travelers because they don't need time zones working. But I would say it's more of the entrepreneurial nomads go to Asia because you have a little bit more freedom to set your own hours, to not work specific times or have calls. Like if you have a little bit more freedom, or if you're like a developer or a writer who doesn't need to be, like we've talked a lot about on the podcast with asynchronous work, it's a whole lot easy. Like you can, if you don't have to do calls and you can work anytime you want, you're going to find more of those people and the entrepreneurs in the kind of Asian digital nomad circuit. But it's epic. I love it. Highly recommend it if you can get there. And yeah, anything I missed for Asia?
Did you talk about weather?
Oh, weather. Yeah, I would say a lot. Like people love Bali and Thailand and those places because it's like year round. It's pretty warm. Kind of like we talked about with hurricane season in the Caribbean, you get rainy seasons in certain places. So I think like in October, it starts to you get rainy season, and Bali, Thailand, it flip-flops depending on which coast you're on. So you do want to do a little bit of research. But a lot of nomads, and like in Sri Lanka, for example, half the country, like during half the year, people stay in kind of like one area in like Weligama where I was. And then the other half of the year, it starts to get rainy. And so people kind of move east a little bit and up the coast. So you might switch either locations within a country or go to a different country depending on season. But it's mostly going to be a rainy season, not necessarily cold. Unless you're in like Japan gets cold, the stands get cold, like Russia, like there's other areas that do get cold. But yeah, mostly you're going to get that kind of like warmer. Most of the digital nomad locations, you're going to have like year-round warmth, and weather is a big draw there. Okay, so the last two will be super quick because actually I haven't spent time. So Oceania, if we're saying it correctly, if someone knows how to say this better, please let us know. But you got Australia, New Zealand, and then South Pacific sort of islands. And this one, to me, it's a lot like the Caribbean. You won't see many nomads, at least like from North America. One, because of time zone in these areas. Two, because of cost. And three, because of, especially when you get into the islands, just infrastructure. I feel like a lot of the South Pacific islands are set up for like honeymoon, like a week resort, like kind of vacation. There's almost no digital nomad communities. Like I don't know any, like I know nomads who again are like on a mission to travel to every country and have popped through some of those islands, but not as like, oh, let me live here for a month and find digital nomad community. It's almost non-existent. You might find some expats. I'm not saying you can't like find friends, but you're not going to find the typical like digital nomad community in the South Pacific Islands. Australia and New Zealand, I have been meant to go to both of those several times, and then like COVID happened, something else happened. It's like the world, I don't know, something in the universe is not letting me get there yet. I will go at some point, but Australia and New Zealand, I would say you'll get a few more nomads there, but mostly it's more cost prohibitive. Not that it's impossible, but it's way more expensive, the same way you might find in like London or different countries. So you just don't find, like most, as we mentioned at the beginning, most nomads are going to places where you can get more bang for your buck. So I've had people visit Australia and New Zealand more as nomads.
Live there for a little while.
Live there.
Yeah.
I do know people like, you get English speaking on the other side of the world. So I know it's appealing for like, I feel like people more so like move there as expats and sort of set up like a life there. Or maybe you meet like an Australian like lover and set up your life there because they're from there. Like that tends to be more what happens. Or like New Zealand, I feel like the nomad friends I know who go there is a little more vacation-y of like a 2-week, live in a camper van and travel around and hike in epic nature. But you won't find as many nomads. So again, 1 is cost, 2 is community, 3 is zone is often hard for work on the other side of the globe.
So far
away.
Just getting there is
so it's just not a popular nomad spot for that reason, but it is an epic part of the world to travel and do more kind of it just tends to be more vacation style. So that's Oceania that you got. And then Antarctica, I am yet to go there. It's not quite calling me just yet, but yeah, nobody's really living and working in Antarctica. I will say, if you have a draw to go there, there's something called Nomad Cruise. And it's basically like a digital nomad conference, like a business conference on a boat that is really epic. It's a great way to meet fellow digital, like both aspiring and current digital nomads. It's usually between like 300, 400 nomads that go on these. It's like a set cruise. And so if you're looking for community or you want to start to pop in, it's a great thing. And last year they went to Antarctica, not working, but just as kind of like a vacation. And they're doing it again in 2025. So you can check that out if you really want to go to Antarctica and you want a digital nomad community, but you're not going to be working from Antarctica. That is it for the 7 continents. If you have listened to this episode or any other episodes that we have shared in the past and you have gotten value or learned and you're helpful on your way to digital nomad life, we would love and be so grateful if whatever platform you're listening on, just take your phone and click the little 5 stars, whether you're on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen. This really, really helps other people find the podcast when they go and they look at the Digital Nomad podcast to listen to and see lots of stars. They are more likely to click and listen. So we are able to bring you more and more valuable information. The more reviews that we get, the more we can share this info with other people. So yeah, if you have gotten any value, we'd be so grateful if you could pop in and share your 5 stars. Other than that, go ahead.
You can also leave comments on Spotify now.
Comments.
People have been leaving, they've been leaving great episode topic recommendations. So feel free to pop in there and drop us a note. We see everything that you put in there.
Perfect. So with that, we are so grateful for you and hope that you now know where in the world, which continent you are ready to travel to start or continue your digital nomad journeys. And if it was helpful, if you have any questions, shoot us an email, hello@beachcommute.com, or as Jeff said, you can leave a comment on your Spotify comments there, or I think, is that the only platform you can leave comments on, Jeff?
You can leave a written review on Apple Podcasts. So you can do that, but it's more like on Spotify, it's kind of like a thread now. So you can leave a comment and I can reply. Okay. You can reply. Other people can comment on it and add likes and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like people are switching over to Spotify a little bit more recently.
Yes. So
yeah.
Love it. Well, yeah. So reach out. We love to hear from you. And other than that, we will see you next week.